Welcome to Not Your Typical Leadership Coaching, the podcast that builds on conventional wisdom and adds a fresh perspective on this ever-evolving field of coaching.
Are you fed up with advice that doesn't really get to the heart of the matter or really get you?
Whether you're a reluctant or seasoned leader, this podcast is for you.
Embark on a journey of actionable insights, harness untapped potential, and learn to develop a mindset that will transform you permanently.
Not Your Typical Leadership Coaching, where we shatter boundaries and awaken the confident and compassionate leader within.
Welcome. We are glad to have you back for Not Your Typical Leadership Coaching, a podcast delivered by Martin Kettlehut, myself, and Bill Tierney, who is an IFS practitioner. A topic that both of us have had come up quite often in our practices is this phenomenon whereby people have adopted a persona that's nice. And there's even a book that's come out in the last couple of years called No More Mr. Nice Guy, which attempts to address.
21 years old now.
It's 21 years old. My goodness.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow. Okay. I stand corrected.
Uh-huh.
But more and more of this is coming about in part because it's a generational thing. And Glover doesn't talk about this a lot. He's the author of the book, but there's been a lot of talk about the fact that after the feminist movement took hold, there was something of a backlash on men who had become nice because it wasn't cool, it didn't work in relationships anymore to just be masculine with no appreciation for the feminine. And so then some of us got raised solely by the women, because back then the men were at work and then the feminist movement happened. So we were raised by mostly women. And so we learned how to be in relationship from women. And so all of these factors have contributed to this phenomenon where there's a bunch of us. And it's also now with the next wave is that there are also nice women out there now too. So it's not just about men. It's about these personas that we take on, to which there's a level of disingenuousness. We're trying to be liked. We're trying to get by. It's a survival mechanism to be nice rather than an authentic self-expression. If you're genuinely nice, that's great. But we're talking about the contrived version of it. And some of us don't even know that's what we're doing. So anyway, Bill.
Yeah. Before we started this particular episode, as we always do, we have a list a mile long of things that we've talked about that we could talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And, Marty, you asked me if we're going to do an episode today, what would we talk about? And I told you there's three things that are top of mind, and this is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
This is top of mind because I currently have a client who has identified as a nice guy. In fact, it was like a huge epiphany when I began to describe what Robert Glover describes in his book. I stand corrected on that as well, by the way. It was written in 2000. So as of this recording, it's 24 years old already. As the lights have come on for him and he's had this insight and awareness about himself, things are changing for him,
Mm-hmm.
really from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
I read the book years and years ago, and it just so happened that with this particular client, every time we'd have a session, I'd be thinking of this book. And I finally brought it up to him, and now he's reading it along with me, and we're discussing it. And because what has him in coaching is problems that it's creating in his marriage, in his relationship.
Mm-hmm. What are them?
Yeah, she wants a genuine, authentic, unapologetic, masculine man.
Yeah.
Not that he would never apologize if he did something hurtful. It's not like that. But have that be the default reaction to practically everything, that either it's an apology or a defense. That's a problem, because there's no way to connect with that.
There's the key. That's the key, I think, right there. But she's not connecting with him, the real him. He's doing what he thinks he should do to be accepted, appreciated, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not him. So she wants the real him. I think that's an important point to make, because a lot of times people say, I want a man, I want a real masculine man. And that might also be a contrivance.
Yes.
Like, what you want is real connection
Mm-hmm.
to a real human being, right? Because Robert Glover could, or any of us could write the same thing about overly masculine people. People are trying to be, effective in the world by being super masculine. That's just as contrived. And you could write a book on people who are trying to be harmonious, or whatever. You take any one of these sort of disingenuous personas that we take on, because they keep us disconnected. We're not relating. Nobody gets to the real us. We're being this role that we think we're supposed to play. So we don't know each other. We don't know each other. And she wants to know him, really.
That's right. Meredith Banka is a brilliant marketing consultant who I'm getting supported by right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a consulting group with her, and we met just a couple of days, or I guess it was just yesterday, and she made reference, and I've heard this before, and maybe I'll do some research and make sure that we link where this comes from once I have figured out. But she said, we have essentially 3 different personas. This is a way to look at these personas. One is our public persona. One is our private persona. And one is our secret persona.
Mm-hmm.
Connection happens when we can expose or allow another person to see our private and secret personas.
I like that.
As you say in this example, she wants in. She doesn't want the public persona that he's bringing to their marriage.
Right.
And he's getting that now. And it's yielding wonderful results.
Great. That's the next thing that I find, because I'm coaching mostly business leaders, and what brings them to this up in coaching is that they're not effective. They can't produce the results that they want to be inside of this disconnected persona. Right. It's like I'm working with a guy who leads a team in a high tech company. They're data crunchers of some kind. I frankly don't know, but he came to me because his team is like, they don't show up on time. They don't seem to care about their jobs. They talk back. They're casual to the hilt and not professional. And they'd rather complain than actually get to work and produce. And he's having the hardest time because he doesn't want to not be nice.
There it is. Right? He doesn't want them to not like him.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's also, not only does it make relating difficult, but it relating to results is also difficult.
Results, effectiveness, getting the most from my team, being loved, getting respected and by my kids, being a good parent. So that it's what we're talking about right now is beliefs. Who is it? A belief that starts with who I need to be is blank in order to get blank. Who is it that I need to be loved? Who is it that I need to be to get results? Who is it that I need to be more effective? Who is it that I need to be in order to get the most from my team? And if the answer to that question is the idea that I need to generate a persona, that I need to pretend to or act as if I am someone who I am not, I'm going to fail.
Exactly.
I'm not.
Maybe not this instant, but in the long run, for sure.
Yeah. 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 So that can go on and on, those beliefs. And exploring those beliefs can yield some great results. If I believe that I have to be nice to be loved, Is it working? It would be one of the first questions that I would ask. Is it working, that being nice? And if you weren't trying to be nice, what is it that you're covering up by being nice? What would be going on if you weren't trying so hard to be nice? Would you be assertive? Would you be speaking up? Would you be speaking for your own needs and preferences? And what blocks you? What has you stop and be nice instead?
And that will vary from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some general things like you've already mentioned. I won't be liked, right? I won't be accepted. I won't be respected. So something like this.
And so much plays into that. I would like to read a couple of things out of Robert Glover's book, No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Can I just give one more example first?
Please do.
This is a client who's a nice woman. To make a long story short, she had a person on her team who was just not being professional. Zoom meetings from her bed, unmade, coming late, not getting her weekly sales report in on time, all kinds of things. And my client had asked to have a meeting to discuss this so she could objectively give her some feedback and she could improve, and she wouldn't even show up to that.
Mhm.
So she fired her. It was like and then she was in shock. Oh my gosh, I just fired. She was telling me in the coaching call, I can't believe I did this. I just fired her. Are they going to hate me? And then the next time she came back, she's like, oh my God, they hate me. I did this terrible thing. Why does it always have to be me that it falls on and on like this? And she cried and I heard it all. I let it all come. And then I said, so now what? And she said, you know what? Actually, I feel like a new person.
Right.
I don't think there was anything wrong with my choice. I think I did the right thing.
Mhm.
And it's just new to me. All that tear shedding was letting go of years of being nice.
Yes. That's
And
beautiful.
so she recognizes, okay, I'm coming into my own. This is what it's like to be authentically me.
Oh, what a great story. And as I listen through the lens of IFS to practically everything that you tell me and everything my clients tell me. And
Mhm.
what that means is, as I listened to the story, I was listening for her parts.
Yeah.
There was a part of her who, forever, it sounds like, held the persona of nice as almost as a value and as the most dominant strategy. If I'm not, I may not be correct about your particular client, but as I listened, how I was thinking about it.
No, that is accurate.
Okay. And so the parts of her that didn't want her to fire her employee, who clearly needed to be fired, were afraid of what they thought was going to happen if they didn't do their jobs. If I'm not nice,
Mhm.
I'm going to be hated. I'm going to be
Right.
criticized. I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to be alone on the street without a house, no money, dying in the gutter. That's where it ends up going.
And
And
so that came true, by the way. Her team was shocked. They didn't think that she should have done that. And she felt very much alone.
yeah,
But then the next day came and she was still around and things were all right.
yes. Yeah. And we train people to expect us to show up a certain way. We've done a really good job of selling the act. And so when we break out of the act, of course we're going to get pushback.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello. Yes. Yeah. We've got a friend.
I interrupted. You were naming the parts that you heard.
I'm just enjoying this conversation so much. I was thinking about a friend of mine who says, hello. What did you interrupt? I didn't realize you did.
The parts you named.
Oh.
The part that's been nice so long, the part that knew that she needed to fire the employee.
Right. And so the part that showed up in the session and cried, that you allowed and held space for, wonderful, by the way, wonderful, that there are times that's just needed. And I don't know about you, but as a coach, sometimes I think, is this my wheelhouse? Is this where I should be? Not that I can't be with sadness or grief or strong emotions. I can be. Thank God I can be now. But is this the place for me? Is this the place for this to be happening? The fact is, it's happening. Here it is. And apparently it must be the place. I'm okay. I believe that she's okay. Let's just see what happens here. And what happened was, to her surprise and probably to your relief, I don't know. I think I would have been relieved. She said, I just feel like a brand new person. So from a part's perspective, the part that was afraid of what was going to happen, and then had that happen, it poked that old unresolved pain of not being liked, of being rejected, of being misunderstood, being whatever that might have been for her. So there still may be some healing there for her to do, but at the very same time, an update occurred. From an IFS perspective, that's an update.
Right.
Oh, that's right. I'm a, whatever, let's say 45-year-old woman, and I have access to resources and skills and qualities that I don't even have, that I don't have access to when this young, vulnerable part of me is so scared of being rejected. I'm going to go ahead and do it anyhow, not because I don't care about this part of myself, but because this part of myself can't be running my adult professional life right now. And now, whether it's in a therapeutic setting or with an IFS trained practitioner like me, the healing can occur. And there's a definite process in the IFS model for how to do that, which brings us back to why I wanted to talk about this in the first place. The client that I have, we're actually reading No More Mr. Nice Guy together. And we came to the traits. And the very first trait that we came to just blew his mind. He realized how true it is that he's not being authentic. And that hit hard. That was hard, because part of being a nice guy is, look how authentic I'm acting. Keyword acting. Look how authentic I'm being, but really it's look how authentic I'm acting.
Which, this is it gets complicated in exactly the right way, by the way. I'm not saying life is simple. It's not simple. Life, being a human being, is complicated. And so it's appropriate that we see now, okay, so putting on an act of niceness is not working for me or them. It's not the real me, and I'm not effective in my communication. But is there a way that I can get what I wanted out of being nice by being effective? Like how about just being fully disclosed and saying, look, this is really hard for me to say, or I have some hard news to break to you, or find a way to authentically communicate what just being nice was going to cover up. And be present with that and stay present with it, rather than putting that in the back seat for the sake of this seemingly harmonious communication.
Putting it in the back seat reminds me of the metaphor that I use with my clients about the bucket. We have the way the metaphor goes is there's a bucket that is empty, and it is designed to hold all that there is for us to deal with on a daily basis. And once the bucket is full, we are out of capacity. So we have to empty the bucket out. We have to process, we have to complete, we have to resolve whatever we put in the bucket. And a lot of that happens even in our sleep. The brain just takes care of a lot of that stuff. But a lot of it gets stuck in there, especially when it comes to trauma or overwhelming circumstances, or just really exiling or banishing or not allowing ourselves to feel or experience or speak what is too scary or painful to feel or speak. So putting something in the back seat, in my mind, is the equivalent of putting something in that bucket and then not taking whatever action is necessary to get it resolved or complete, so that the next morning I wake up and it's still there. I've gotten a good night's sleep, maybe, and it's still there. And over the course of a lifetime, my bucket might start out 90% full in the morning, while everybody else out there that knows how to do this, and there's not that many that do, but everybody else in the world that knows how to keep their bucket empty so that they have full capacity for whatever comes their way in a day. I compare myself to them, and I'm grossly handicapped because let's just say 90% of my bucket's already full when I get out of bed in the morning, because I haven't dealt with, I have not resolved, haven't completed, and haven't healed my past. So we put something in the back seat. That's one more thing. And guess what happens? There's no place for it to go. The back seat is full. The bucket is full, so it overflows and makes a big mess. And everybody sees. Eventually, what happens is it blows up, and everybody that we've been trying to manipulate into thinking how great we are sees what a mess we are.
Yeah. So you just the moral of that story seems to me to be you save yourself a lot of stress and blow-ups, as you point out, by just being authentic the first time. Don't put anything in the back seat. If it feels like you need to, then really look at what is it you're avoiding and say that.
And there are times to put it in the back seat. There's times to put it in the bucket. I'm not going to say that thing right now because back to IFS again, maybe there's a part of me that would have me say it in such a way that it would really do some damage.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to, that's not the answer either. Just to let my young, vulnerable, or under-resourced parts of me that are still stuck in the past step forward and run my adult life for me. That's not going to work either.
No, right. No, I was thinking of the transformed communication that says, I have this part that's having this reaction, but here's what we need to address. I remember working with this woman once. We were on the same team. We were working for the same purpose. This was not a client. And she was an arrogant bitch, frankly. And you know it all and talking over everybody. And she irritated the heck out of me.
I see that.
It was triggering a very young part of me that has these issues with authorities, and she was being authoritative, maybe a little bit authoritarian. And if I say a word, it's going to come out in a way, like you said, this is going to be a bad communication. And so I scheduled a separate meeting with her away from the team. And I just told her, I said, look, I'm having a reaction to you, and I want to be responsible for that reaction. And it's about, you seem to know so much and to be so well versed in these topics. And I feel small and all of that. And it was amazing because I was authentic, she was authentic. And she said, wow, you're saying that makes me realize that I've been showing off. And that's not really who I want to be here either. Thank you for showing who you really are, because I want to show you that's not really me either.
Yeah.
And so, boom, authentic communicate. It's so when I say authentic communicate, I don't mean be the upset part. Create a real connection.
Yeah. We've talked.
So we were great after that. Like after that, the two of us we had a great time on that team, and everybody looked at us like, how did those two come to get along so well? It was because we had a real connection at that point.
Like Susan Campbell would say, you got real.
Exactly.
In her book, Getting Real.
Yeah.
10 Truth Skills, Getting Real by Susan Campbell. We actually reached out to her and asked her to be on the podcast, and she said yes, but we haven't put that together. It'd be cool to get Dr. Glover on the podcast too, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I'll make myself a note to reach out and see if he'd be interested. They stand on this position in slightly different perspectives, which is great. I think might be better to have them in separate episodes.
Yeah, probably.
But both of them really, I think, are pointing to the same problem, and they just maybe have a slightly different approach for how to deal with it. And of course, I feel like I have something different to offer from an IFS perspective than either of them do. Is how do you get to getting real? That's really the challenge. How do you get to getting real? And the way to do that is to go in and see what's real inside of me, and before I can expect myself to be real with anybody else out there.
I am just reminded of yet another client, and so I wanted to pull up the notes from this conversation. So he's a nice guy. We haven't talked about it in those terms yet, but his boss was not really acting in good faith. They had already decided based on his skin color that he was not going to work out in this job. And they gave him feedback, but it was like obviously not even appropriate. They were saying, you're not working hard enough. And that was not at all true. So he could tell they're just dismissing me out of hand. And I said to him, why didn't you say anything? Well, I hate conflict.
There we go. There's another reason to be nice.
And so I just asked him, I said, okay, he's been fired. So I said, so the next time this kind of thing happens, so a new situation, similar thing happens, well, how could you be true to yourself and approach that differently? And that got him to think. He said, I guess I could ask them to say more about the feedback, to come to an objective place where I know exactly, rather than cowering in my niceness and thinking they don't like me and avoiding conflict. I could ask them, say more about my not working hard enough. What is it that you're expecting that I'm not doing? Right? Or like that. That gave him a new perspective. He's okay, so there is a way to be me. I don't have to become mean or conflictual, but I could just ask them to say more and then get to an objective place. So that's another example.
From your example, I'm going to go back to IFS again. It sounds like until you helped him see that there was a middle ground, it seemed to him it's one extreme or the other.
That's right.
Either I'm nice and do everything I can to avoid conflict, or I'm aggressive and I actually cause conflict. And I'm the bad guy in that conflict.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And by the way, that probably gets modeled for us, and that's why we draw those conclusions. There's the mom who's nice, there's the dad that's aggressive, or the other way around. By the way, I've been married 3 times. This is a healthy relationship that I'm in now, but my first 2 marriages, I was the bad guy, and she was nice. And in my second marriage, she was the bad guy, and I was nice. Neither worked. Neither position felt very good. It was very ineffective, very disconnected. So from an IFS perspective,
we would talk about it that way. Okay, you play the good cop, I'll be the bad cop. Like that kind of stuff. We shouldn't let that, don't tolerate that. As soon as that happens, now we're playing roles.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Yeah, that persona, that public, let's say public persona. Who is it that I need to be in this given situation so that I can avoid getting hurt, so I can avoid conflict, so I can avoid being blamed, so I can avoid being rejected, and the list goes on, or so that I can get what I want, get love, approval, and appreciation, as Byron Katie says. The pursuit of love, approval, and appreciation, she says, that's the consolation prize. Self-love, that's the prize. But how do you get to that? So
another way to get to it, that's why I brought out that other conversation. Another way, I asked him, the same client, I said, what if you were the boss? Someday you're the boss and somebody's not working hard enough or whatever, and he stumbled a little bit, and I suggested, how about invoke the value that's motivating you to deliver the communication? Yeah, it was about taking too much time off. I said, if you were interviewing somebody and they asked, what's your work-life balance policy? And it sounds like they just want plenty of time off or something like that. And I would invoke the value of having balance between work and life because it's healthier. The employee will stay in the job longer and be happier and be able to work better when they're at work. And so that was his reference of value that we both agree on that brings me to this communication.
Very nice.
So it's not personal. It's not me against you. We both agree that work-life balance is an important thing. Okay, then go from there.
This is just the beginning of a lot of really wonderful conversations. Wondering if there's anything more to say about this.
You were going to read something.
Oh, yeah, that might just kick it back in gear again. But this is something from the book, No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. This is the 2003 edition. And he does a good job throughout the book really describing who he's talking about, these nice guys, these people that suffer from nice guy syndrome, a phrase I believe that he coined. He said, they all believe that if they are good and do everything right, they will be loved, get their needs met, and have a problem-free life. This attempt to be good typically involves trying to eliminate or hide certain things about themselves, their mistakes, needs, emotions, and become what they believe others want them to be: generous, helpful, peaceful.
Yeah, maybe for another discussion would be that you talked about the three identities: the public, the personal,
And the secret.
private, and the secret. That's a distinction in my own work. I call it your secret identity,
Yes.
and it's a bugaboo. It's pretty much oftentimes it's really running the show. It's making all your most important life choices. That might be a topic for the next.
Let's do it. I think that's a great topic. The next place that I would go in this conversation, if it were to continue, would be to just touch on one of these traits, or just at least mention the traits that
Yeah.
are common to nice guys. Glover does a wonderful job of identifying the characteristics that are common to nice guys, and then traits that are common. And I think he distinguishes it that way, because the characteristics are what you can expect a nice guy to do. But if I'm a nice guy, I do these things. But also the traits are, if I'm a nice guy, this is what's true about me that's behind those behaviors. And one of them is nice guys are dishonest. And that can just be a real kick in the gut. That can really just take the air right out of you. No, I am not dishonest. Let's look at it. If I'm acting, if I'm performing, if I'm showing up as someone that I am not, but think I need to be in order to get the outcome, or avoid to get the outcome I want, or avoid the one I don't want, that's dishonest. Now, it's not malicious. It's not sociopathical. It's just not completely authentic, is the point.
It's fear-based.
Right. So it's not a criticism of people that are being nice guys. It is, but it's something to be aware of. If I want to be able to get real, as we talked about earlier in this conversation, you cannot get real while pretending to be someone I'm not. I have to let go of the pretending and own, as you mentioned in your story, between you and the woman that you used to work with, where you just got real and said, I'm having this reaction. I want to own this reaction. I don't like it. What triggers it is this. I'd like to change this in some way. And I just felt like it'd be good to bring it to your attention. And then boom, that opened the door for her. She saw right through her own. She wasn't aware that she had a persona going on there, that she was being a public persona to get.
Hey, when I said, you seem to know so much, she was like, well, I don't really feel that way. That's what did it.
Yeah.
That's what did it.
Yeah.
Just think about, so often, for some reason, I'd flashed on going to a party. You walk into a party and just look around the room, how people are putting on this show. Everybody's putting on a show. She's trying to be the glamorous one. He's trying to be the successful one. We're all doing these shows, and
yeah. You said you've got, at the core of some of your coaching is the secret identity. Are there other identities that you've also identified around the secret identity in support of the secret identity?
No, that sounds like parts work.
Actually, prior to parts work, before I learned about IFS, I had what I called the shame identity. That's the secret identity, I think would be the same, but also the false identity. And I'm not saying that I made these up. These aren't mine. I didn't generate these ideas. I don't know where I got them, but they're pretty common to think in terms of. There's the shame identity. Who I am is not okay. There's the false identity. Given who I am is not okay, I better present something to the world that is okay. And then there's the true self, the true identity. Yeah. And this is who I really am, but probably have forgotten all about it and actually don't believe that's who I am anymore. I'm identified with the shame identity, and I'm working really hard with my false identity to keep that a secret, and while I'm working on it to improve it.
We do identify those three, yes. Absolutely. Yeah, because it's not like your only identity. The secret identity isn't your only identity. There is somewhere else to go, someone else to be, that is more true.
And the good news is that when the parts, let's use IFS language, I will use IFS language again. When the parts of me that make up that shame identity, that identify as I'm not okay, there's something about me that's not okay. When those parts are healed, when the parts that have been trying to manage, control, and protect those parts recognize that in IFS language, those are called the exiles. When recognize that the exiles have been healed, they no longer have to protect, control, or manage them. And all that begins to relax. What emerges, is not effort. It's not trying to be real. It is the ability and access to the ability to be real. What emerges is that true self, and also known in the IFS model as self with a capital S.
That's beautiful. Makes very good sense.
Yeah, I love the vision of not having to try to be me.
Whenever you're trying, then you're not being you.
Maybe that's
it should feel effortless. I shouldn't use the word should. It will feel effortless.
It feels effortless when I'm there. And I get to experience that from time to time, more and more all the time, in fact. Marty, this has been a great conversation. Maybe a good time to stop it right now, and until the next time we do our next episode.
Forward to.
I always enjoy it.
Me too.
That concludes another episode of Not Your Typical Leadership Coaching. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights to fuel your leadership journey.
Remember, true leadership is not about you. It's about empowering others.
Take your insights to heart and cultivate a leadership mindset that will transform you from within.
Thank you for joining us on this quest to leadership excellence. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for our upcoming episodes where we delve deeper into the art of leadership.
Until next time, remember that you have the power to lead with confidence and compassion from the inside out.